Hey there, welcome to this Fireside Chat conversation between myself, Samantha Mo, and Jaci Finneman of No Problem Parenting. Thank you for being here.
This is so fun, Samantha. I love everything about you, and I'm just excited on Friday afternoon to hang out and connect.
Thank you. I'm happy to have you here. And what I know about you professionally is that you're really visionary. I know that your podcast and your business is called No Problem Parenting, and that like me, you're on a mission to empower parents and help them become the confident leaders that their children yearn for. And what's remarkable about your experience, I know that I personally call you when I have questions about reactive attachment disorder, and that you have traversed the realm of family dynamics for over 3 decades. And your background is unique. Initially, you were a paraprofessional in public schools, and then for 20 years, a family counselor. And now you're a parent coach and consultant. So I think you bring a lot to the table. And the point of this fireside chat is to highlight for people the conversations people like us who love kids, who love parents, really are passionate about the family dynamic, get to be a fly on the wall for really like the conversations we have when we call each other.
I love this so much.
Same here. Thank you. So we're riffing, and I think the topic we're talking about today is the types of parents that you tend to see when they come in to see you. You mentioned that they're too nice, they're too mean, or they're in this category of trying to solve challenge that they have no experience in, and possibly even attempting to do that alone. So tell us where your heart is at on this.
Yeah, it's so fun that, especially the last 11 years of my coaching business, but even the last 30 altogether, like you said, as a paraprofessional in the school with kids with different abilities, with kids with mental health issues, and then eventually parent coaching. I believe that when we help the parents, we can help the kid.
Mm.
And so often parents don't reach out for help if their situation is really until it gets like super hard because they might be embarrassed or like, I should know how to do this. Like, I just need to get it together. Nobody will understand. But when the parents come to me, typically I say they're being one of three things. I notice one of three things. They're either being too nice, they're being too mean, or they're trying to solve a problem or a challenge with their kid that they have no experience in. Like they didn't know anything about ADHD or about sensitivity or attachment issues or whatever. And they for some reason think that they're just because they have the child, whether they birthed them or adopted them, that they're just supposed to know. And it's
Mm.
like, come on, really? No. Like we
Mhm.
all need help. But 90% of the parents that come to me are in that too nice category.
Hmm. So tell me
And
more about that
they
because
don't
people don't think they're in the too nice
They
category.
don't. They don't. I explain this to them, and so then I learn a little bit about their story in the first, 20 minutes, half hour, whatever. And I say, "Oh, so you're in the too nice category." And they're like, "No, no, no. We yell. Like we fly off the handle. We flip our lid. We lose our cool. We do all these things." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I actually have a yeah, but character coming out in the near future. Yeah,
Mm.
but I'll say, what did you do all before that? Like before you flew off the handle?"
Mhm.
Most parents don't just fly off the handle. It's,
Especially if they're contacting for parent coaching,
oh,
right?
right,
There's an
right.
awareness, a
Yeah,
mindfulness.
yeah. You've tried all the things. You've read the books. You've done the stuff. You've done the positive parenting. You've done the getting down to your kids' level, and you've done the trying to nurture and pave the way for them, and just to help them and be in this together. And you're doing like all the things, and the kid's still rejecting, 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 defying, defying, melting down, crying. All the things. And so you're nice. You're nice. You're nice. They're not responding. You're nice, you're nice, you're nice. They're not responding. And eventually you just blow because you're human.
Yeah.
You don't know what else to do, or you're desperate, or you're stressed. And, it's not just the parenting piece, it's all the other stuff going on in our life, work and other relationships, and yeah, all the things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
So what
most
do you,
parents are too nice.
yeah. And so parents are probably like, wait, what?
I know it seems like, well, and you should know, Samantha, you do know this about me. I think that I even say to parents and on my podcast, a lot of what I teach is bass backwards.
Mm.
It's not, I don't just talk about the stereotypical parenting kind. I like we got to come if things are not working and you're butting heads with your kid or you're just so exhausted and drained and tired and not feeling like anything you've done is working, chances are it's not the program that you tried, right? It's not the program that you
Mhm.
tried.
Mhm.
It's where you're at, in your life and your exhaustion, your stress, like your all your other things.
Yeah.
And um yeah, and so we got to get to the root of that, and we got to help you. I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah, no, you're great on that. I get it. And what I'm hearing you say is it reminds me of the book that I'm writing. So years ago, I was like, oh, I should write a book on the Mad to Glad curriculum, but I didn't. And at the time, I mean, now that I look back, I'm like, oh, I didn't write it at the time because at the time, I probably would have written about all the tactics. But given the last 4 years of life with COVID and parenting and all of that, what I'm coming to awareness of is the tools don't really matter if your heart isn't in a space for transformation and growth,
Mhm.
or the tools also don't matter if you don't have the capacity
Mm,
to internalize some of it. And when we're talking about parenting, yelling or flying off the handle or not using a tool that you know is good, like practicing calm, if
mhm,
you're not doing it, it's not a reflection on you're a bad person or you're a bad parent or you're not capable. It's more like, hey, how does this reflect on your self-care skills? How does this reflect on your being supported by the people around you skills? How does this reflect on you being open to living a family lifestyle where it's peaceful instead of getting caught up in the drama cycle? And one of the things I really love about you, Jaci, as I'm dancing around the sun and getting my lighting here, is that I think you do a really nice job talking about parent self-talk and helping them feel confident. So,
mm.
what do you
Yeah, that's my
find
favorite
is
thing.
happening in parents' minds when they're doing this bass backwards?
Yeah, and I mean that's just like if you don't feel confident about yourself as a parent, about your situation, your relationships, your work, much less your child, and you're worried or fearful or upset or scared for your kid, I mean, you're not going to find success. You're going to our negative thinking, that muscle memory of our brain, if we're harder on ourselves than anybody else could be, you'll continue to feed that negativity and that the negativity and the what's the word for it? Like that you're just not good enough, and so nothing will work. Nothing will work.
Yeah, like that not worthy, not,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't belong. I'm not worthy. I had no business raising kids. A lot of the families that come to me have adopted children.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because they couldn't have birth children of their own, or maybe it's they wanted to add to their family. But the parents that come to me that haven't been able to birth their own children are so hard on themselves. So when things don't work with the kids, they're like, see, I wasn't supposed to have kids. And that breaks my heart.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
breaks my heart. Or you have a child, a birth child, and just nothing works with that kid like your other kids. And so
Hmm.
then you think there's something wrong with you that you can't connect with that particular, there's something wrong with you. You're like me. Oh, there's something wrong with me. It's like, no, you're just you've got a kiddo that's displaying behaviors, symptoms, health issues, whatever, that's different. And you're not skilled in it. Once you're skilled in it, once you understand it, you're exactly the parent that your child needs and deserves. So we
Hmm.
just have to, so often we put so much negative emotion into our abilities as a parent. And when we don't know a skill at work and we're trying to get a raise or keep our job, we do everything to learn that new skill.
Hmm.
Right. And we give ourselves the grace that, of course, I didn't know it because I've never done this job before. But with parenting, we're just much harder on ourselves.
I
And we don't
remember.
give ourselves permission to
Mhm.
learn.
Yeah, or to be missing a skill in the first place.
Hmm.
I remember when a colleague of mine said, "Oh, parenting is so interesting because like in order to be a 16-year-old learning to drive a car, you need to have all these hours of driver's education and actual practice. But you give birth and then, all right, here you
There
go.
you go. I
No
mean,
one."
yeah, when we brought our son is 19 now, but when my husband and I brought him home, and he
Mhm.
was 5 weeks premature. Birthing plan did not go at all as I hoped. I mean, I'm an attachment specialist. I was going to breastfeed and, I was going to have this vaginal birth and I was going to do everything, as natural as possible. And all it's like, well, that didn't happen. And so we bring him home and he's healthy and all is well. And my husband looks at me, he's like, now what do we do? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, well, you're the counselor. Like, you're the person that babysat since the age of 9. Like, you should know what to do. It's totally different when you bring them home into your own home, and like a lot of our skills just kind of go out the window because there's that fear and our heartstrings are tugged and it's just kind of a whole different ball game. But we all need support. I don't care, who you are and how much education or experience or background you have. Life throws us curveballs. Our kids certainly do.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I agree with that topic of support. And I'm curious if there are any emotional themes that you go back to regularly with parents. For example, I find myself, that I do my Mad to Glad Blueprint online program in a group setting, and I've intentionally done that. I was really scared to do that before 2020 because I thought, well, parenting's really vulnerable. Who wants to say I yelled or I overpunished my child or it's embarrassing or vulnerable, I would say, to talk about what's happening behind closed doors, particularly when you're an educated grown-up. A lot of grown-ups are that I see, more than 50% are in the fields of nursing, mental health, education. Like,
teaching.
I can't believe I know all of this and this is how I'm behaving at home. And so emotionally, I think it's really important for us to acknowledge this really universal human need of belonging. So
Mm.
I offer the group program because otherwise, even in a one-on-one session, people are like, am I crazy? Am I alone? And it's really, you probably find this straightforward to hear somebody share something. You're like, I hear this across the board from parents who have kids with impulsive behavior. I hear this across the board with parents who themselves grew up in yelling households.
Yep.
And so I'm curious, like, what emotional space you feel like most parents need to hear is actually part of humanity.
Yeah, so my group program, we're going to start a group training next year, 6-week training on becoming a no problem parent, but I haven't done that yet, and that's exactly why. And so you've been a catalyst for me, our connection. We learn so much from each other and how we're uh, running our businesses and coaching our families and content and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that made me decide, okay, yes, I can do a group coach because it is so personal and vulnerable and confidential. And I came from a 20-year history of, mental health and counseling. So
Oh,
like be
yeah.
really confidential about all that. Not that we aren't
There's
as parent
federal
coaches,
regulations. Yeah.
but there's also like it's different. It's separate. We're in the future, we're in the present, and we're looking towards the future where therapy's more let's dig into the past kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Um, but yeah, so we're going to do that group thing and normalize parenting, no matter where you're at in your stage of parenting or what's happening. Um, I think normalize is a good, that's not an emotion though. You're asking for an emotion.
You can take it where you want. That's okay.
I don't know. I just acceptance and empathy and normalizing and humanness, like there's no one right way. I actually tell parents a lot too that, I've worked with families where the children have been severely neglected, abused, removed from the home, maybe reunified back into the home, or maybe placed with a foster family until an adoption could happen. And then I've worked with families with private jets who are have no need for, finances are not an issue. They have all the resources in the world at their exposure, like they're able to try anything that they need to for their child and get all the services and the help and whatever. And I will tell you that there are more common denominators with those families than not. Because when you're struggling as a parent, I mean, obviously, if you have the financial means, that's a big help, right? So I don't want to discount that. Like, and I wish that we could all have the same access to things, and that's a goal of mine, someday, right?
Yeah.
But what the emotional side of it, when you are stressed, exhausted, rejected by your child, not paid attention to, disrespected, those things, it doesn't really matter where your means or your way of living or your environment or whatever, it still hurts and it causes us to be defensive and or to feel rejection and to be hurt and then to want to resist and really kind of even sometimes get back at or put that
Mm.
wall up with our kids. And so that's what I am a big believer in mindset shifting, and education is key, or knowledge is key, not necessarily book education, but just experience. And so my no problem parenting is more about helping parents shift their mindset about what it means to be a parent, what their role is, what their resources are, what their options are, their
Mhm.
abilities are. And then I pass them on when needed to programs like Mad to Glad. When they have those highly sensitive kids and they need some more skills in that, I'm going to send them to you every time.
Mhm.
When their kids are misbehaving or super like isolating or super distraught, maybe there's been a loss of a loved one or grief in the family. I've got a resource for that. I've got somebody that's going to coach specifically on that. But before I fish you out into anything else that you maybe haven't tried or didn't know was out there, I'm going to help you with your mindset first and
Yeah.
really boost your confidence so that you believe that you are the expert of your child and the best person to parent your child. Even
Mhm.
if that means in severe cases where your child needs to go somewhere else for, residential help because they're older and they have that need, or they need to be in a certain kind of a program or something else. It doesn't mean you're still not the best person for your child. And I
So
can help you feel super confident in that.
how do you do that?
Well, we just get to the root of the issue. Step one in no problem parenting, seek first to understand, why is my child behaving the way they are? And why am I responding or more often reacting
Mhm.
the way that I am to that behavior? Oftentimes we have buttons as parents, right? And that can come from our upbringing. It can come from our experiences. It can come from, and it doesn't mean you have to have a terrible upbringing. It
Right.
could be a really traumatic upbringing, but it could have been fairly normal, but maybe you just were more of an anxious kiddo.
Yeah.
And I love your story. If people are new to you, Samantha, they must go listen to your story. They must sign up for your program because you talk about that with your relationship with your dad and not that it's a bad relationship, but everybody's got a story. Everybody came from somewhere. And
Hmm.
so we get to the root of that. And as parents, we do have buttons because of our past. So sometimes that means not drudging into just noticing, acknowledging, and recognizing why you might be responding or reacting the way that you are.
Mm.
I don't mean to going into therapy. That is great. If you need therapy, I've got lots of resources for that too. And I would encourage you to do that. That's not me. I don't do the therapy piece.
Yeah.
But if we have buttons, it's not our child's job to take care of our buttons.
Mm.
We
Hmm.
got to figure out what our buttons are from so that we figure out how to take care of those buttons, make them either less reactionary or get rid of them altogether. And we can do that. It takes practice.
Hmm.
Sometimes months and months and years of practice because that muscle memory of the brain is really strong, but we can rewire it.
Yeah.
We can change it. So we do that. So that's the first step is seeking first to understand. Once we understand the problem, no problems are meant to, it says right in the definition of the word problem. A problem is a matter or situation that is unwelcome or harmful and needing to be dealt with and overcome.
Mm.
So when we have a problem, you've got a kid that's really acting out, they're aggressive, they're causing, they're being dangerous, they're maybe harmful to their siblings or to you or others. They're using, abusing substances or different things. Get to the root of what's going on with that. And then that's the problem, right? So let's give that problem only as much attention as it deserves.
Mm.
Only as much attention, I say. So that might mean your child needs to go to treatment. Your child might need a behavioral program that they need to be in, or they might need to, I don't know, do an outdoor program or something, right? They need some other kind of service or help. And it seems so severe and you feel like you're losing them. I feel like it's
Mm.
just like this is not at all what you expected. No, let's not awfulize that. That problem does not need to overcome the rest of our life and livelihood and relationship with our child. We focus on that problem. We say, hey, let's deal with this and overcome this. And we say that to our kids too. We teach them about that. So we can still love them. We still provide empathy. We still can be in a good mood despite this like lurking problem, this really tough issue or problem.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
when we give the problem only as much attention as it deserves, you start to see not only your kids kind of relax, everybody, like your whole lifestyle just kind of starts to shift. And you're like, okay, not that the problem's not a big deal. We don't discount it. If you get a kid that's being violent or harming others or melting down like all the time, screaming at the top of their lungs, enough to shatter the glass in your windows, like that is a problem. That is a big issue. And life is still going on. There are still other
Yeah.
things that we can do and we can still, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And what it's gotten me to thinking about is a family I was talking to on one of my coaching calls this morning. She was sharing about the young child who is whining and begging all the time. So they get
I
home from
love
work and
those.
school. I know. And so, from a general perspective, we're talking about whining is negative attention. It's a pretty young child that's at the end of the long day. And so if you can proactively provide positive attention, then
Mhm.
some of that behavior decreases.
Yeah.
And yet it feels so exhausting because the mom's like, well, yeah, but I also have to make dinner and this is the time of the day and this is like my work schedule. And so one of the ways that I address it, and I would love to hear you how you begin approaching, like, give the problem only as much attention as it deserves, is we were talking about let me get back on track here. So
Whining at dinner time
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, I can picture the story. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So when we as parents are focused on the thing that's so annoying, like the whining and the begging, we notice that if we're stressed out and we don't have groundedness or a general sense of happiness in other times of our life, during our work life or during our marriage or a significant partnership, during our social setting, in some way that we move our body, like a fitness program as an example, if we don't have happiness there, then our brain has this reticular activating system that says, notice all the things that annoy you and always catch this whining and begging behavior in your child. So for
Mhm.
mindset, what I do is I say, so what's the opposite of that? And she's like, not whining. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that would be
Right, like laughter. We were talking about a young child, 4 or 5 years old, and they tend to be, a strong-willed, otherwise neurotypical child tends to be have delightful moments in terms of child development, imagination, creativity, joy, glow, all that stuff. And so we were talking about, how do we look for the time when the child is happy? How do we notice and comment on that? How do we breathe that in so we're noticing when our child is looking for that delightful connection and not just the annoying connection?
Mhm.
And
Yeah. And I
right?
love that. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And that's very positive parenting. And it works. So that is one piece of it. I would say that's 30% of the solution. Because
Mm,
nothing, right? Nothing is 100%. Like we
right.
have to have
It
so
works.
many,
Right.
we have to have so many tools in our toolbox. So I would say, yes,
Yeah.
we definitely have to catch them being good. We have to notice them. We have to, use curiosity and wonder and all that kind of stuff. And then in my bass backwards approach,
Yeah.
there's that side of me that would say some days, as great as all that stuff sounds, you're not feeling it. You're not having it. It catches you off guard. It's like one more thing. Here we go with the whining again, and it just exhausts you and drains you. And then you snap or you do something that later you beat yourself up for, right? So
Right.
in step two of no problem parenting, we talk about preparing for the worst. And I use
Hmm.
quotes in that because somebody's worst might be somebody's easy cheesy.
Right. Especially with these different diagnoses. Hmm.
Yeah. Like for me, anything to do with numbers is my worst. Like, and my brain just is like exhausted immediately when we start talking about numbers and things. I'm like, I don't know, deer in the headlights, eyes glaze over. But you give me a little kiddo that is wet noodling, tantruming on the floor, throwing a fit, or a teenager that's cussing me out, F-bombing away, and I'm in my glory,
Hmm.
just the way my brain is wired. It's not like I invite it, right? I'm not like, oh, I get looking for it everywhere. But when it happens, my mind shifts into right away, like, how do I help solve this problem? And I'm not matching their emotion when I do it. So step two, prepare for the worst. What is that thing? So let's say whining. Whining is the thing. Well, a lot of times for kids, whining becomes a habit.
Yeah.
So sometimes the whining is because we've allowed it, we've entertained it, we've given it too much attention that the kiddo knows that, well, when I do this, I'm going to get all this attention, even if it's negative attention. You talk about this, Samantha, like even if it's negative
Mhm.
attention, you're feeding me something, right? Some kind of
Right.
of excitement. Um, but sometimes it's just become habit. And then if, as I've seen this a zillion times, You can have a kiddo where they're basically everything's going along just fine. And, mom, I'll be at their home or something, having a good conversation. Nobody's misbehaving. Everything's great. And the kid goes over to mom and hands it the sippy cup and says, I want water. And the mom takes the cup and puts water in the cup and gives it back to him. And I say, whoa, 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 wait. What just happened there? And
Mm,
mom will say, oh, well, nothing. I mean, they just wanted water. Okay, but now if you were upset, if you were stressed, if you were frustrated, if you'd had a bad day, that same exact situation, your kiddo would have come over to you and handed you that cup and said, I want water. You'd have snapped at him. Stop your
mm,
whining. But this time you didn't even acknowledge it. You just allowed it, right? So I
right.
think it's really key that exactly what you're saying in those days when you're like, what are we doing in consistency with it, right? So what are we doing to prepare to catch our kids being good in that moment to say to the kid, oh, try again. There
Mm-hmm.
was no problem. Mom's not being mad about it or anything. She's like, oh, try again. And the kiddo might look and maybe even get upset a little bit. Oh, I know. Sometimes it can be hard to ask for water with your 4-year-old voice or,
Mm,
whatever you say.
yeah.
But we wait. And then we prepare for the worst by when there is a meltdown. Sometimes the best thing to do is give that child permission to have it.
Yes.
I mean, so, little man, looks like you're having a big feeling about that one. Let it go. What do you need to do?
Now, this is a light example. I think it's a light example. So what about
Right.
those situations where there is some trauma and disruption to attachment and it's a
Mhm.
bigger person, it's a bigger teenager and there's violence? Like how would you
So preparing for the worst means we have to all parents have to have non-negotiables. And so when there is violence, when there is aggression, when there is destruction, before that happens, and you know what's going to happen because it's been in your past, there's got to be a plan. And we have to have a conversation about that. And a lot of times, because it's a teenager, we're going to write that plan out because more
Mm,
often than not, the minute we bring up that we need to talk about this, they're going to shut us out. They're not going to want to talk about it. So you may need to have have your plan, your non-negotiables. There are things that need to be non-negotiable, and safety is always one of them.
yeah.
So we have to have a plan for that. And then you might need to slide it under their bedroom door. But the key is following through and letting them know that your words are gold, that you mean what you say, and not in a I mean what I say, right? In a very matter of fact. So where a lot of coaches, like you teach calm, I teach calm as well, right? But I
Right.
often switch that calm word with matter of fact.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Because if you tell me to calm down when I'm hyped up, and it doesn't have to be like madly hyped up, but just like intense or stressed or like pressured or rushed, and you tell me to calm down, if I wasn't upset already, I'm now upset,
For sure.
right? So I teach a lot about matter of fact. We take the emotion out of it. We don't match our child's emotion. The minute my child is flipping out and throwing his matchbox cars against his bedroom wall because I've just sent him in there for being destructive or whatever, and I know, ooh, we're in for it. This is a big one. I deflate, I diffuse,
Mhm.
I go down to and almost to the point of obvious exhaustion. Oh my gosh. Like I'll get kind of almost even dramatic. Okay, this is gonna be a big one. I figured it was coming, and no problem. We've got this, or just, get it out. And again, I don't mean to be like silly about that, but we do need to have a plan and not join into our child's emotions. Same with a teenager that's being aggressive. In that plan, it might need to be that we're going to need to notify police if this gets out of hand. I'm going to have a plan ready for when the police officer gets there. If my
Yeah.
child is consistently acting out and aggressive and doing that, that plan's getting sent to the police office before anything even happens, just to say, heads
Mhm.
up. I want you
Yeah.
to know about the situation. And here's my history with my kiddo. I love them dearly. They're really struggling right now. We want to make this the best outcome for them possible. So, yeah, we do a lot of planning and preparing for the worst at No Problem
Hmm.
Parenting.
Hmm. I love
And
it.
a big part of that starts with you being confident enough to do that. A
Mhm.
lot of parents, that's the hardest part, is feeling confident enough to do something like that and then to be able to follow through.
Yeah, yeah. So there's like clarification on tools, but there's also clarification on understanding, right? So what's happening here? What are your triggers? What are their triggers? And what I'm hearing, we've known each other for yeah, years.
Yeah.
And when I've heard you say no problem in this conversation, before we move towards wrap up, I want to share that I heard it differently today. It's like no problem parenting is looking at any situation and you're like, there's not a problem.
We can
This-
turn any
It,
problem into a no problem.
yeah, nice. And part of that, what you're saying is unhooking. How do we
Yes.
unhook ourselves?
Yes, yes. That's why you and I align so great because I mean, we say a lot of the same things, maybe in a different way, a little
Right.
bit different way. And I love the way I've done your Mount of Glad program. Again, I've sent people your way. I continue to send people your way. I love it because there is a difference. And I play well with others in the sandbox, especially when I know that their programs are so intentional with supporting parents to support
Right.
the kids. Like that's my favorite. Yeah, that's my jam. But yeah, no problem. We are going to take a look at the problem. If there's an elephant in the room, I'm calling it out.
Yeah.
Right? We're not skirting around it. We're not trying to pretend there's not a problem. We're not posting all the prettiness of our family on Facebook or Instagram to show how wonderful we are, even though we're dying at home, dreading nighttime, bedtime, school calls, all the things, right?
Right.
But we're saying there is a problem and we're going to give it as much and only as much attention as it deserves. And then,
Mhm.
as we say in the Midwest, we're going to keep her moving. So
Mhm.
I believe we can turn any problem into a no problem. And I don't say that with a white picket fence approach. I say it with
Mhm.
a very practical, real life, day to day, uniqueness that your family or your situation, brings to this world. And everything's figure outable. It's not always how we'd hoped, right? So there's a lot of loss of dreams and things like that we have to deal with. Um, and so it won't always look much like the birth of my son isn't always going to look like what we had hoped for or planned for. But once we stop fixating on that or beating ourselves up for the roadmap that didn't happen, we
Mm.
just take a look at our uniqueness of our family and our situation and our lifestyle and all of the things that come with that. We can plan for it. We can figure out a different way. We can own it and we can be confident
Yeah.
in our situation and in our family. So that's it.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. I think we hit on some interesting topics that you and I have talked about in light ways before. So it's nice to go deep on this.
Yeah, I love it.
And I know that your work is really beautiful as well. Thank you. I've accessed it. And how can people, I think your work is also really accessible. So for people to access your work, will you share how they can do that? And then I believe you've got this amazing download on ways to respond to kids without losing their cool. So that'd be great to share too.
Yeah, the easiest way to get in our websites, all the things are being updated for 2025. So everything's a little discombobulated right now, but there's tons of information there. Go to noproblemparents.com. The download that I shared with you today, it's called the 60 Ways to Respond to Your Kids Without Losing Your Cool. And it's a
Mhm.
compilation of I don't know if I would say my favorite 60, because I could add another 60 to that probably. But
Sure.
lessons, responses I've heard in my own training over the years from other programs, from other uh, experiences that I've had in the field over the last 30 years. And so then starting with episode 189 on the No Problem Parenting podcast, I go through 10 responses each episode for 6 episodes. And I give examples, which I mean, I could do that again and like literally do one episode per response. So I kind of cram a lot into those episodes, giving 10 ways to respond. But anyway, how you say it, the tone in your voice, the lilt, everything is really empathetic and matter of fact.
Yeah, and I love scripts. It's always nice to have examples of what to say in
Yeah.
those moments. So we'll put that in our notes here
Thank
and no problem parents.com. And
Yeah.
I thank you for there's a specialty area, several that you have that I don't really touch on, things like substance use and teenagers and high risk situations. You're really, really excellent at some of these attachment disorders or disruptions and families that are navigating violent situations. So thank you
Yeah.
for the work you're doing in the field. We'll be sure to put a link and I appreciate all that you
And all of your listeners and followers, you'll see Samantha's Mad to Glad program on my site because
do.
I send so many people your way and I hope they follow through. But you know how that is. I would say if you're listening and you haven't done it yet, you guys, best investment. If you have a very highly sensitive kid and you're just, like, you gotta do some, your, what's the course? Is it Mad to God? Is it like an intro
Yeah,
course or
that
something?
blueprint,
The
blueprint.
blueprint. You gotta do the blueprint. You will not regret it.
Thank you. We actually have a Thanksgiving Small Business Saturday special coming up here, so
Oh
I'll
my gosh, perfect.
drop that
No,
in.
it's so good. It's so good.
Okay.
And you were grateful enough to invite me in and to share with me. I've done some of your webinars and things before. And I mean, I'm not kidding, Samantha. I'm so honored to know you. I'm happy to be in your circle.
Yeah, same. Thank you. And we'll keep up our business conversations behind the scenes where we're like, can you talk to me about a contract?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, who's your insurance provider? So, real conversation, fireside chat. Thank you so much for your time, Jaci.
Thank you.